Hey down, this is David Aside. Today I want to talk about HYBE and the news addressing stock prices. I wanted to get into Jung Kook's items just gone out of Seoul, and then I also wanted to address members' previous dating and their regrets. But before we do, I wanted to talk about something, so let's roll the clip. Now I wish you guys could smell through a screen because I wanted to put you guys onto Scentbird. They are a subscription service that you pay $17 a month and you get designer fragrances sent to your door. The appeal here is that you can try these very high and expensive brands before you decide to buy the full bottle, or if you just can't afford the full bottle. And Scentbird has over 600 different scents that you can choose from, so you'll find the one brand that you like. They have this new packaging compared to the old ones. This new one has such a sleek, modern design. This is locked and this is unlocked for you to spray it. It opens like this, and then you see the new huge vial that you get, and then it closes magnetically. The amount that you get is 8 times the size of sample perfume sizes that you get at the mall. The scents that we got today are Versace's Dylan Blue Pour Homme. It has a bergamot, grapefruit, and pepper smell, spicy and sweet. Dolce & Gabbana, the one for men, has an amber, tobacco, ginger type of scent, very spicy. Then Michael Germain's Sexual Noir has a bergamot, lavender, tobacco scent. Burberry's Brit for men has a more rose, ginger, nutmeg scent, very Christmas-like. And Prada's Luna Rosa has a lavender, mint, bitter orange scent. The Prada one is absolutely my favorite. It smells like when you open those fashion magazines and you're hit with this luxury smell that inspires you and just makes you want to walk down the runway. These are all amazing winter smells, but if you don't like these scents or they're not your style, you can take a quiz on their website to get more personal match. I will have a link for you in the description. Go there and use the code DAVE55 to get your first month for 55% off. That's under $8. So please go check out Scentbird and thank them for sponsoring today's video. So to say BTS members have never dated would be slightly inaccurate. They've all had very brief experiences dating, but definitely not much or any at all once becoming an idol. But before then, as they were in school, they definitely weren't shy about letting people know how they felt. They're definitely a lot braver than I am. I never told anyone I liked when I was in school. Suga's story is actually quite interesting and very brave, as he confessed to a large number of people when he sent a letter to the radio station. Suga had an assignment on which he had to send in to a radio station and write a letter. Of course, the letter was in Korean. This exercise was likely just to see how well his Korean writing skills would be. Suga was in high school. The letter was written in 2008, so he was about 14 or 15. He spoke very candidly in the letter and wrote about his middle school love experience. He talked about how he was shy around this girl that he liked and he couldn't bring himself to tell her that he actually initially liked her. As they became closer friends, he finally got the courage to tell her and they actually ended up being together. Suga talked about how his personality changed when he was around her and maybe he felt more pressure to be something that he wasn't. It's very difficult when guys date in general because they tend to be the ones that has to lead the conversation, at least at first, and expected to be funny and on all the time. Given all the BTS boys are introverted, you can imagine how exhausting that would be. And they would be scared to say the wrong thing. I used to think dating was so much harder than it actually was because I felt like I needed every word or phrase I say needed to be something cute and magical. But that's not true, and that's not what anyone is expecting of me or anyone. Perhaps this is how Suga felt at the time when dating this girl in middle school, and thus he felt super nervous around her after they became official. He said that ultimately this led to them breaking up, and he had a lot of regret over the dating and the whole situation. He felt like he could have been different around her and more vocal about his feelings to her. I think this is so weird because reading this letter, it sounds very much like an adult reminiscing over a really long relationship, and it seemed like he really matured and grew from it. And typically with a lot of earlier relationships, they don't evolve into a lot of personal growth. But Suga is very mature and he was able to get personal growth out of it. He talked about once it ended, how much he ended up reflecting on his actions and really looked inward. And it takes a huge, big person to look and see if you did something wrong rather than placing blame on another person. Looking towards yourself to say, you know what, I take partial blame for how I acted and I can see why she wouldn't like that. It's a great letter and I bring it up because I think it's an important message for all of us. Don't look at relationships, whether long or short, don't look at them as a waste of time or that the person was a bad person. In some cases, yes, but understand where they're coming from and understand that you can also have partial blame in how things went on and then go your separate ways. It doesn't change how amazing you are as a person, don't forget that. I always respected BTS and even HYBE for their ability ability to look inwards and not place blame on others. A lot of companies and even artists can sometimes gaslight their supporters when they believe their supporters are wrong. In many situations, it's best to apologize or simply not address anything. It was recently reported and alleged that HYBE has gone into a panic mode, and people believe it to be true as the HYBE stock has lost a lot of money over the years. If you're unaware, big companies that are on the stock market, the owners rely heavily on investors for money. Not so much so the sales that the company generates. The sales that a company makes, the profit gets distributed to the people who invest in the company. And then whatever's left, the company takes it. So sales of a company actually don't necessarily correlate with how high the stock prices go. I know that's kind of confusing, but listen, stock prices are just how much an investor is willing to spend to buy a portion of a company. Investors, they will look at things like sales and stuff like that before investing, because since they will own a part of that company, they will get a portion of the company's sales in return for owning the company. So if they believe sales of the company will go up, i.e. when BTS makes a comeback or whatever, suddenly a lot more people want to buy stock and stock prices go up due to supply and demand. If the entire company is owned or bought out by stockholders, then the original company owner actually makes no money from sales and just takes the money from the investors buying the stock. This is just a weird and unlikely example, but I hope it makes sense. My point here is that HYBE also relies on stock to keep their money and revenue up. And people read headlines like HYBE stock drops and correlates that with HYBE sales dropping, which is not necessarily true. Stock prices can drop when investors believe or think that HYBE sales will drop. So people will sell their stock if they believe HYBE is going to fail. Just that belief will get people to sell their stock, and we see that plummet, even if none of that belief is true. Now, I don't know entirely if this is the case here or not. This is not financial advice, but people were freaking out and saying that HYBE or BTS is over because news reported them losing 10 billion within the last year. You've had moments this year where BTS mentioned hiatus and immediately stockholders sold their stock because they were anticipating that if BTS went on a break, that HYBE sales would drop. And no one wants to be invested in a company that is not going to have any sales profit to give their investors. And then coupled with moments of uncertainty with BTS's enlistment led to possibly more of their stock dropping because investors were just so uncertain about what is happening. Analysts, whose job is to help investors, predict that BTS will enlist mid-year this year or whatever it was, and so a lot of investors pulled out of the company because of that too. But this doesn't mean sales actually dropped or that BTS is not as popular anymore. People are just assuming that. We've had moments where Jung Kook leaves the shelves and flies right off. Jung Kook leaves or Jung Kook sold out started to trend and be talked about. And a specific example was during their 2022 BTS Proof exhibition. There was a bunch of bags that were being sold, and each member had their own type of bag being sold. Jung Kook's bag sold out immediately, and people who wanted them couldn't even get them anymore. And so many people also shared this frustration with all Jung Kook's merch. Things like Funko Pop or anything like that are sold out so quickly. I mean, we knew this already, that Jung Kook was the king of sellout. Again, all of this just makes it hard to believe that the company is doing bad. But I don't know 100%, so don't take my word for it. Do your own research. This is just entertainment. I think one of the most intimate parts of knowing someone, whether friend or partner, is knowing their morning routine. Getting to see who they are as a person first thing in the morning, right out of bed, mind barely on, what they end up doing. We get to see a lot of that with BTS during their reality shows like Bon Voyage and In the Suit. I do react to Bon Voyage, which is just their traveling reality show on my Patreon, so we join them in traveling the world. We react to it every Thursday. I'll leave a link down below if you want to join us over there. Jung Kook has shown a very cute morning routine. He tends to wobble out of bed. Sometimes he sleeps with a member in his bed, and other times he's alone. But he either wakes up first thing and cooks ramen or something, or he sings and does karaoke. How on earth does he sound so good first thing in the morning? I have no freaking idea. There's episodes where Jung Kook shows how he is right out of bed, and he also goes right to karaoke with Jimin. And of course, since this is a morning intimate moment, people are saying Jimin and Jung Kook are dating. No, they're just living together and both of them like to sing. However, every member of BTS is not shy about sharing a bed together and all that. So they share a lot of really intimate moments, either fresh out of bed or even in bed, and we get to see all of that in their show. But I am definitely curious to hear your thoughts on all this today. What do you think of Suga talking about his previous relationship? How do you feel about how Jung Kook leaves the shelves so fast? What do you think about HYBE's stock over the past year? And how do you feel about Jung Kook showing us his intimate bed moments in the morning? Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out my Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thank you for this lovely comment right here. Love you. Bye.